So it's summertime. We wanted to have a video to tell all you visitors who are coming to Canada about some of the main things that you need to know when entering Canada. Let's start with visa applicants. So certain people need to apply first for visas to enter Canada. And if you're one of those people, first of all, it can take much longer than you expect to apply and for your visa to be processed. Otto, where can they find out how long it takes?
So the IRCC website does have a link to processing times, and basically if you look up visitor visas from the visa post that you're applying from, it'll give you, usually in terms of weeks, how long it's going to take. So processing times are getting longer, so it's really important that you apply for your visa before you book your plane ticket or anything like that, so as not to avoid any disappointment.
And we'll include a link of these processing times in our explanation on below the video. But these are regular processing times. They may not be the processing times that your specific visas take. They'll just give you a general idea of how long it might take from where you are applying. But I wouldn't book your tickets until you get your visas. Not only might it take much longer than you expect to process, and B, if there is a possibility these days of rejections. The rejections are much higher than before in many places because of the fact that immigration is using a lot of artificial intelligence these days. So Ada, what can they do if their visas are rejected?
So the first thing that we want to do is see the reasons for rejections, and we usually see these by getting the notes, the ATIP notes. Once we see these, we're able to determine why something was rejected. At that time, we'll also do a review of the application. And at that point, we have two options. The first is if we see that something glaring was missing or that something wasn't explained properly to an officer, we can file again and do a new application with new evidence. The other option that we have is if we think it was a pretty complete application and that the decision maker just wasn't on the ball, is we can judicially review these decisions at federal court.
Great. Okay, so if you don't need a visa, you might need an ETA. So ETAs are for those people who are from countries that are not visa requiring, and you're not American. Americans don't need ETAs or visas to come over. These ETAs, normally you apply and it takes a few minutes for you to receive it through your email. But sometimes we do see that the ETAs might move to secondary processing or they might be rejected. What are some of those reasons why this happens?
The Electronic Travel Authorization was put in, generally, it's not doing the same thing as visas where it's looking at the reason for your trip, but mostly it is looking at inadmissibilities. Is there somewhere in the act that makes you inadmissible to being able to come? So the big ones that we see are anyone who has past criminality. Especially with the Five Eyes countries, we have shared databases so they can find evidence of criminality that's happened in your past. And they're also looking for past refusals. So in instances where you've had past refusals, either to Canada or other countries, they can ask for further information.
Now, for Americans who don't need to first apply for an ETA or visas, we do these days see still a lot of questions at the borders, especially if you also have criminality in your background, if you've been convicted of any charges in the background. A lot of people, for example, think DUIs may not be a big issue, but in Canada they're a huge issue. They are at the level of serious criminality. So if you have any sort of these kind of issues with arrest and convictions in the past, you must first seek the advice of a lawyer as to whether and how you might be able to apply for a temporary resident permit to come to Canada or rehabilitation.
Generally, they say that Americans don't need ETAs, electronic travel authorizations, but they're still doing that exercise. It just happens at the border itself.
That's right. And Canadian Border CBSA officers have all the time in the world these days to look into your background. And so we find a lot of American travelers, even if you have come into Canada multiple times before and haven't had those issues, you might experience them more nowadays. And a lot of times officers are also looking at whether or not you are coming to Canada to live on a permanent basis without a permanent resident visa, or working in Canada without a work permit. Okay? So if you have any questions, any issues about your entry to Canada, you know who to call. We're here to help you out. Take care, everyone.
Have a great summer.